Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hey, how are you? It's August 23rd. It's soon to be sweltering Monday. And the big news, just breaking, is that the Food and Drug Administration has taken away from a lot of the people who refuse to get vaccinated the reason they say they won't get vaccinated, and that's good. We'll call them on their bluff if that's in fact what it's been. But the FDA has granted full approval to the Pfizer vaccine, and thus releasing it from its emergency use designation. And this will set off all kinds of tumult among the anti-vaxxers. It'll also set up a number of mandates, vaccine mandates. Now that it is no longer emergency use, it is fully granted status and approval by the FDA. So I think I know you will, and me too, will start getting more corporations, more schools, more hospitals, more whatever, state governments, city governments, I don't know, mandating vaccinations. Simple as that. So that is nothing but good news, since this comes at a time when we're seeing this worrisome surge. And I came upon here, let me back up, because I'm going to go back in time a little bit here, a few days ago, when I saw, and I'm sure you've been seeing this too, that the people who just refuse to believe that the vaccines are the best way that is known globally to protect from the virus, but also to kill the damn thing if everybody gets vaccinated, to give it no shelter, no home. One of the states in which the vaccination rate is just woeful, I think it's under 40%, might be in the low 30s, Mississippi. Although I'm sure, Alabama and Arkansas and all those other states known for their genius populations also have these kinds of issues. We'll see. What issues? Was I talking about issues? That was where my mouth just finished a sentence without my brain attached at all. It was like, when you're typing and on your computer, and the computer thinks it's so damn smart, it suggests your next word. Like, oh, I know where she's going. And it's not right. You just go away. Okay, I've now completely forgotten what I was attempting to say. Oh, so, and I know this because one of you, I'm not going to name names, so sweetly sent me an article, earnestly imploring me to read this article about this drug that is the answer if you get COVID. And for some reason, it is not being recognized. It's called Ivermectin. And I think I mentioned this on the show. Well, it turns out that has gone viral. And so people are looking for it. And because it is mostly a drug used to deworm livestock, people are going to livestock supply centers, where a farmer would go to get the stuff he needs. And it's gotten so bad that the state epidemiologist in Mississippi, pity that guy, a guy named Paul Byers, has had to go on television and beg people to not take ivermectin because people are going into these livestock supply outlets. Personally, I wouldn't know where to find a livestock supply outlet, but, Google it, I guess. And they've been taking it, ingesting it. Well, the calls to poison control centers, the ER visits are surging because these people are getting sick as dogs. So this head epidemiologist actually was begging. He actually said, please, don't do that. They've had to desperately try to talk people down. That these, if you're a 1,200 pound steer, I have no idea what a steer weighs. That's the dosage that for this kind. It's not for humans. Ivermectin apparently can be prescribed for people for other things, but not for this. And this is all this crapola that's, it's the new hydroxychloroquine. Did I get that right? Yeah. I guess some countries in Latin America had been using it as a COVID treatment, but no, it's not for you. It's for a horse. Well, actually, in fact, that's what the guy said. No, this is the FDA has also put out a warning this weekend that says, you are not a horse. You are not a cow. Seriously, y'all. That's from the FDA. Stop it. Well, where does this come from? Well, it turns out Fox News hosts Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, Laura Ingraham have been promoting the use of ivermectin. Senator Ron Johnson, the unbelievable nitwit from my home state of Wisconsin, was actually kicked off YouTube for a while for posting a video touting ivermectin. So just want to say, but all of this led to, I think, one of the best tweets I saw this weekend. At least it was a tweet that made me laugh as opposed to making me cry or run under my bed. The tweet is this. This tweet would not work today since the FDA has approved Pfizer, but this is the tweet. The FDA hasn't fully approved the vaccine, so I don't know. I'm just not. Wait. You have that crap that deworms sheep? Give it to me. And it's this sense that these people who will not allow their bodies to be defiled by a vaccine created by actual science, signed off on by doctors, scientists, and health professionals all over the world. Oh no, they're not putting that in my body. But these same people will ingest hydroxychloroquine, Clorox, Ivermectin, anything. It's just mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. Hey, and remember the Sturgis motorcycle rally? Mm-hmm. The second Sturgis motorcycle rally held during the pandemic. The first was believed to be a huge super spreader, although it was very hard to determine how many cases and or deaths came out of it, simply because those motorcycles traveled all over the country and contact tracing was impossible. So Sturgis held its second rally. This was even bigger than last year's, just a few weeks ago. And there's no doubt that that would be another super spreader event, although again, it'll be difficult to trace, but this much we know already. South Dakota, where Sturgis sits, has seen the country's largest 2-week COVID surge. 230% increase. Yeah. You know, like how many people can you put in a Volkswagen or in a phone booth? How many idiots can you squeeze into a country? Because I think we got the world record. I think somebody get Guinness on the line. Not kidding. Oops, that was me. I punctuated with my hands, which I tend to do, and I hit the phone. That was what that. Milton, one of our listeners and emailers, sent me something yesterday that I just was wonderful. I mean, he was reminding me, he sent me a YouTube video, which happened to be my show, about, geez, how many years ago was that? About 8 years ago. And it was me and Tom Sokolowski. God bless his soul. And we were reading an email that Milt had sent that day, which was August 22nd, yesterday's date. And Milton was telling us that it was the birthday of a woman that he just thinks the world of, Dorothy Parker. And Dorothy Parker, that acerbic wit and wondrous writer, who a member of the Algonquin Round Table. And what ends up happening on the show is that Tom and I start reading some of the witticisms that Milt has sent us. And we are laughing so hard. It is so wonderful. You know, it's weird to sit and look at your own show from God knows how. I was also stunned at my hair. I thought, geez, your hair really looks nice, but I see you're starting to grow it out. And Tom with his goofy glasses and me screaming at him because he's sipping through a straw, like, you know. And I don't know. I loved it, Milt, and I want to thank you for it. One of them, and I was shocked when I heard myself say it, so I'll say it again, because it is funny. Those of you who don't like four-letter words, the F word in particular, cover your ears, because here it comes. Dorothy Parker said, "Tell him I was too fucking busy," or vice versa. Think about it. Think about it. She's brilliant. Here's one that's so cracked up, Tom. I like to have a martini, 2 at the very most. After 3, I'm under the table. After 4, I'm under my host. Yes, sir. And we learned that Dorothy Parker, and this was surprising, pretty much left her entire estate to the NAACP. And I remember, that made me remember some article I'd read about her being buried at a NAACP site, where there was a chapter and a building. I hope I'm remembering, somewhere near, I think, DC. It all seems very strange, and that they were selling the building and didn't know what to do with her. Am I making that up? God, I hate it when you just don't know anymore if what you're remembering is actually true. Speaking of that, I waded into something this weekend that I had been telling myself had to be done for decades, and I did. It was really 2 drawers. I've only done one in a cabinet, large cabinet, in which I had stuff. Photos, letters, articles, clippings, all this stuff having to do with, well, me. It was mostly stuff that I thought, well, you might want to save that. So I thought, you've got to someday organize that. I mean, because what? I mean, I don't know, just because. So, man, that turned into this extraordinary deep dive into my life and stuff I couldn't, for the life of me, even remember. I had saved letters. There were letters, 2 letters from Susan that were written in had to be 60 or 61. She was like 9. I think she was about 9 years old. I was away being tortured at this 8-week Jewish summer camp. So miserable. And Susan wrote me these 2 just adorable little letters. So I was thinking, my God, I'm going to send them to her because I think she should have them. But how odd, or not, that I had those 2 letters still. And I never put them someplace that was, organized, like letters from Susan or family letters or something like that. And it makes you remember that having letters, having people write letters, gave you such a wonderful, paper trail. Came upon letters from my father and my mom and my brother. There's just a million of them, and they are such a joy. Anyway, just saying. And I came upon unbelievable mail from. All right, here's one. Here, I'll just share this one because it's sitting right here. My entire, what passes for my studio now is my dining room table. And my studio is now just on one corner of it. The rest are all those papers and photos, which I still have not organized. I mean, I've thrown out a good hunk of it, but I don't even know where to start. Anyway, so here's one that's right here. This was written to me in October of 1991 when I'm doing radio on WTAE. And it's written by a woman who signs her name. I'm not going to give it. And it had to be, because there were a number of letters from the same period, had to be during the Clarence Thomas hearings, congressional hearings for his appointment to the Supreme Court. And so that's Anita Hill and all of this. This letter is so indicative of so many that I've gotten throughout my career. I just want to give you a sense that it comes in. Written by a fan, you understand. Okay. Dear Lynn, I have been a big fan of yours, and I felt I just had to write this letter. During the congressional hearings, I was taken back. It's aback. Never mind. I was taken back at all the bitterness against men more than usual coming from you. I have been hearing a lot of comments lately, and people are interpreting your comments saying you're probably gay. I know you trust your feelings about certain things, but please ease up a little on your comments about men. You know, there's a lot of rotten women out there too. It's like you get high putting men down. And I feel so bad for you because more and more people are talking about you in social places, at work. I've always been a fan and will continue to listen to you, and I hope you don't interpret this letter to be bashing you because it is not meant to. I think you really don't realize how you're coming off. And you probably think all the women in this area are crazy about you. And I think a lot are, but from what I am hearing, they agree to a point with you, and then they bring up the gay aspect. That is why I am sending you this letter. Sure, you are going to get support from women, but I have been hearing a lot of women really making terrible, terrible remarks about you. I'm sorry to have been so blunt. It really is not my style, but I do think you are a good person, and I hope I give you something to think about. Thank you. And it's now, I probably saved that just because, again, it's like a historical record of the kind of stuff that women in a position of perceived power who are not married are constantly getting, constantly. And clear, the undercurrent is that being gay is a really bad thing. They're whispering about being. So it's also historical in showing, you know, the animus, the homophobic nature of our culture. I'm glad to say a lot of progress has been made in that regard, right? Since that was written. Okay, I'll give you one more because I'm sorry, it's right here, and then I'm gonna put it. This is from the very beginnings of my career, and it startled me. So I've held on to this since December of 1977. Pittsburgh is a place I've never been to. I'm living on a pig farm in Mazomanie, Wisconsin, right outside of Madison, and I'm working in my first job in television in Madison. And here is the letter from someone in Beaver Dam. Dear Miss Cullen, we enjoy seeing you on Channel 3. My daughter notes how beautifully you dress, and each outfit seems more attractive than the last. I'm wondering if you give away clothing you no longer wear. My daughter's a tall girl and would be happy to wear anything you no longer wear. If need be, I can remodel clothing. At this time, anything would be appreciated. Well, you know, I don't recall that I sent her a damn thing, and now I'm feeling I should have. I think I was just stunned that someone was asking for my clothes. But as I read it now, older, wiser, it breaks my heart. Okay, I'll stop. Thanks, Milt. Parker's resting place. Yeah. The ashes of the wisecracking New York writer have been shelved in the obscurity of a lawyer's office And that's, yeah, the NAACP's got her ashes. There were proposals to sprinkle her remains in the Hudson River or paint them into art. Finally, her ashes were interred beneath a plaque in a Baltimore business park. Okay, this is it. So I did remember this right. But I guess then they were moving. It's kind of heartbreaking that she's being moved again, said New York writer Ellen Meister. She really suffered so much disrespect in terms of her final remains. It's a tragic end to a very difficult life. Wow. She's known to have attempted suicide at least twice. Oh, and then here's more of her stuff. The first thing I do in the morning is brush my teeth and sharpen my tongue. Oh. She's the one who said men seldom make passes at girls who wear glasses, something I always took to heart, and so was blind. I was so nearsighted but wouldn't wear glasses. I'd be walking into walls. Here's Dorothy Parker on romance. It serves me right for putting all my eggs in one bastard. And she famously ad-libbed. Do a rhyme with horticulture. Some rhyme with horticulture. And she just right off her bat. You can lead a horticulture, but you can't make her think. Okay, I'll stop. But yeah, she was arrested. She was with Dr. King, marching. Wow. And she left her entire estate. Dr. King, saying she wanted her money to benefit the civil rights movement. And after he was assassinated, her money went to the NAACP. Wow. So, a wondrous woman, Milton. You have good taste. Dorothy Parker would have been 100 and God knows what yesterday. Okay. Actually, I've got another. Do you mind? I mean, no, this is so much better than talking about the horror of the present. I also got this fascinating letter from Father Joseph, and I'm assuming he has no problem with me sharing it. He writes about the fact that he was, when he was in the Air Force and a captain, he was put into some special program at George Washington University with 49 other captains. And it was a program for captains that they thought were going places. So he says, one day we were getting a briefing from an expert on missile defense. The speaker, would you believe he was a member of the Doobie Brothers? This guy walks in with a ponytail, jeans, leather jacket, and boots, and he was very knowledgeable. So it's Jeff Baker, who, was with the Doobie Brothers, and I think some other bands. Didn't he play with some other bands too? And for some reason, it's not letting me open up the Wikipedia page because I've got this ridiculous old. Wait. So I can get something here. So he became like he originally got into looking at certain scientific-y ways to deal with music. And that brought him into dealing with some stuff that the military was was using. And then he just kept going further and further and further down the rabbit hole, and he truly became somebody that was obviously taken seriously enough that he was briefing the best and brightest young captains in the Air Force. And this one thing he said, which I captured, I thought was such a wonderful way of looking at, where you find information, about creativity, about using something in a different way than it has been used before. And for instance, he said, we thought turntables were for playing records until rappers began to use them as instruments. And we thought airplanes were for carrying passengers until terrorists realized they could be used as missiles. And so he says, my big thing is to look at existing technologies and try to see other ways they can be used, which happens in music all the time and happens to be what terrorists are incredibly good at. Isn't that? And he's, Doobie Brothers. Life's interesting. Okay. And what else do I have here? Well, you missed the opportunity. You could have bought Tom Hanks' Airstream travel trailer, 34-footer. Yep, he put it up for sale along with some other cars he had. Did you see this? He got it originally because, he's making movies all over the place. And as he said, I'd spent too much time in those trailers that the studios would give them with ugly decor and horribly uncomfortable furniture. So I decided, well, you're Tom Hanks, I'm sure you can afford it, to buy a brand new Airstream, just an empty shell with an interior made to my own request. And this was 1992 that he bought it. And this was before Airstream became like so wildly popular. So Tom Hanks' Airstream, it was Sleepless in Seattle, a great chick flick. Sleepless in Seattle that he was working on, and that's when he said, I need my own Airstream. And I have to say that that Airstream traveled from Seattle across the country to Beaufort, South Carolina, where he was filming, Beaufort, South Carolina. Yeah. Forrest Gump. It also went to Philadelphia for Philadelphia. And even relatively, I think of this as recently, although I'm sure it's not, but that's what happens when you're old, to New York City for Sully, about Sullenberger. And it came with all the stuff in it and all that kind of stuff. So what do you think of? Oh, and here's a neat one. It also, when he did Apollo 13, he said he and Ed Harris and Bill Paxton and Kevin Bacon, and they were all dressed as astronauts, drove the Airstream, still in their in their astronaut wear. Obviously, it was close enough to where they were filming. And they went to visit a grave site, which they did in their astronaut gear. I would so love a picture of this. What was the grave site? One of the greatest movie performers of all time. Buster Keaton. No relationship to Michael. Buster Keaton. Brilliant. I just can't. The picture of those 4 actors dressed as Apollo 13 astronauts standing in silence at Buster Keaton's grave. Hanks, by the way, said, Keaton did not respond. Well, that's not funny. So what do you think it went for? Obviously, there's history in it and all that, besides it being, I suppose, a pretty nice Airstream. Let me see, what did it go for? You think I know? $235,000. Well, I guess if you got it, you can spend it. $234,000, and the guy doing the auction admitted that if this had been the same trailer, but not with the Tom Hanks connection and all that history that it comes with, it maybe would have gotten half that much. So, just saying. That's the way the world works. So you're so rich, like you're Tom Hanks, you're so rich that when you're trying to clean your, like I'm trying to clean out that one drawer. But if you're Tom Hanks and you're trying to clean out your garage, I guess, and you think, well, I guess I'll just, put it out there, you end up making more money. You just can't stop making money. I mean, when you're rich, you just get richer. That's the way that works. I'm just saying. That's the way that works. You see, the AFL-CIO's got a woman leader. That's a first. And the second in command is a black man who was with I actually think I've interviewed this guy, Fred Redmond. He's the top officer with the steel workers. He was, and now he's going to be the second at the AFL-CIO, which is it's not the vice president. It is whatever she was. It was, I don't know. So she takes over after the shocking death of Rich Trumka. Her name is Liz Schuler. Secretary Treasurer is the second position. She had been, and widely believed to be Trumka's, next in line, and there she is. So that's historic. Hey, I do want to say that as we go from, weeks of deluge to now weeks of searing heat, the weather, the weather is scary. I'm not saying our weather is necessarily that scary, but, I don't think a day goes by that I now don't read. And this could be that a little of it could be that we're aware now. And so these stories get bigger coverage than maybe they would have. Would a flood in Tennessee have made the front page 20 years ago? Yeah, this flood would have, because it came out of nowhere. And they know I haven't seen the latest numbers. The numbers I'm looking at are 22 people known dead, and more than that missing, which isn't usually a good thing. And that was, in pretty much wiped out this town, Waverly, Tennessee. Now, that's the kind, and think of what we saw in Germany. This is the kind of, these weather events are really stunning, scary. And at the same time, there are four people dead and 4 missing in North Carolina after a flash flood just came and. Now that doesn't seem like anything when you're, next to Tennessee, but these numbers just keep going up and up, and you see the devastation from the Tennessee flood. The homes obliterated, the cars just picked up and tossed around. Wow. So I don't know. I'm just saying, weather is now something that we have to fear. Used to be, they say, severe thunderstorm warning, and you think, and then the way it's been lately, a severe thunderstorm warning could mean a tree falls on you. I mean, branches just come. I've got a lot of old trees around me, and man, they're little by little just being ripped apart by these storms. Anyway, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. Ben, thank you. So the guitarist, whose last name is Baxter. Did I say Baker? I met Baxter. I even wrote down Baxter. Did I say Baker? I think Ginger Baker. Anyway, his name is Baxter, and he played with the Doobie Brothers, but also with Steely Dan. That's right. And he's considered a national security terrorist type, brilliant expert. God, unbelievable. It's sort of like, when you found out that Hedy Lamarr, that gorgeous, she's so gorgeous, you could hardly, it hurt to look at her, that Hedy Lamarr was like a genius who tried to get the military to listen to what she had to say about using sonar during World War II. You think, what? What'd you say? It's true. I'm sorry. Do I have a call? Is that what that was? I have a call. Hello.
Not only do you have a call, you have the call.
Oh.
Just kidding. Speaking of global warming, the weather event that, shocked me, made my eyebrows go up, is that it rained in Greenland for the first time in recorded history. Talk about global warming. I was like, okay, the globe is warm. Like, that's it. Yeah,
there were. That's scary.
Yeah.
And there's 100-degree temperatures that were recorded in Siberia.
Yeah.
Siberia is just melting away, creating that's why all these, mastodons are popping out of the earth left and right that have been lying there in the permafrost for, herds of them. They're just coming out of nowhere.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where, I usually have, some kind of answer or some kind of positive spin on something. I don't have one. It's like, there's just like no positive, even with the, because, I'm into like the science thing and this being able to study these animals and, find all these fossils. But at the same time, they could be releasing pathogens and viruses and all kinds of stuff that's been buried in the permafrost that we have no immune against. You know, you think the COVID
that
was bad.
that is correct.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
You don't want to know half the stuff you know anymore.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
it's scary.
It all leads to one word: we're doomed. When the COVID hit, you know, there's a tribe in South America that, you know, that they only film them from the sky. You know, I said, well, there's the saviors of humanity right there. Those guys living in the jungle that, you know, you know, that no other human breathes on besides themselves. You know, they might be the saviors of humanity. So, or you know, cockroaches will develop a brain. You know, so who knows?
No, we're goners. I agree. I totally agree with you. I mean, and I just feel
for the kids.
Someone said for the kids, and someone said to me the other day, if you were of childbearing age, would you have a child? And I don't think so. I mean, I never did. I adopted a child. I can see where that's still something that people need to do. But actually producing another child and bringing them into this world, I'm not so sure. Although even in my own family, there have been 3 little kids born in this pandemic. So they're, you know, humans got to do what humans got to do, which is they got to procreate. It's a basic instinct. And yet, why would you?
I never had any children, and it is quite intentional, you know.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, but here's the argument from the other side. You possibly can be producing that person who's going to save the planet. You know, the genius that never was born.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm always thinking the person that could save the planet is already here. But they're living, unfortunately, in some impoverished country where they're not given an education.
It's exactly.
Right. So no, those geniuses are all here.
I did a cartoon that sent me when I was in art school, you know, during cartooning class. They sent me to the counselor after I did it. This is like 1982. I did like a fake newspaper headline that read, "The cure for cancer discovered, shot dead by a stray bullet." You know, it was like a child that was, you know, that was that long ago. So that's the same feeling that you have there. That there's the you know, all of our human brain power isn't being used. You know,
nowhere near it. And wasn't used. I mean, think of all the people. The only brain power that was being used, at least in our, you know, culture, was white men. Yeah.
And even when black women came up with something, white men took the credit.
That's right. That is absolutely correct.
Yeah.
So we've never used our brain power. And this idea that you have to keep producing new babies when there's people all over this world.
All over the place. What was I going to say about educating people? I was going to say something, but forget it. I'm old too. I'm old. Like I say, there's absolutely no question about it. You know, that I can't remember things from one second to the next. I started writing things down.
Isn't it something? It is humbling. It's humbling, and you know, I was telling my mother some stuff I found in all these papers I unearthed, and she said, "Oh, I don't remember that." She said, "I just don't remember." I said, "Mom, I don't remember them." So no, so I mean, she doesn't remember more than I don't remember, but we do. We just can't. I don't know. Our brains get overwhelmed or get stuck.
It's just too full of stuff. I always tell people my goal in life was to be an old guy that told stories, because I liked old guys who told stories when I was younger. And people always tell me, yeah, you talk too much. And I always say, yeah. I say, I know that, but don't think I'm going to stop because from telling the stories of my past, I'm helping to remember my past. So that's one thing that I do.
Although we have to admit this, us storytellers, as we tell stories, we sometimes add a little, for a good story, you add an adjective here, an embellishment there. And
absolutely.
So after a while, you want to remember your life. Well, the stories might not be all that accurate. And
to me, that doesn't matter. As long as the gist is there. You know what I mean? As long as the gist is there of the story that you're telling, like the younger people, they get the gist of it. You just made it better. You got to make it interesting. You know what I mean? so that they listen.
I hear you. From one storyteller to another. Always good to hear from you, Clarence.
Okay, hopefully I didn't talk too much.
You always talk too much. Bye.
I gotta go real quick. I gotta find this rap song that you just said. There's this rap song called "You Talk Too Much, You Never Shut Up." I gotta go find it now. Put it in my.
Yes, you do. That's your theme song.
I gotta put it in my iPod list or whatever it is.
Maybe that should be my show open. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, Milt, honestly. He says Hedy Lamarr had another famous first. She had the first she was in a movie. This is before she came to the United States. She was running from Hitler. Before she came to the United States, she was in the first non-pornographic film to feature a woman having an orgasm on screen. She was 18 years old. And it catapulted her into international stardom. Well, yeah. So anyway, yeah. She was so gorgeous. She had 6 failed marriages. Whoa. Okay, so here's the thing about it. She, along with the composer George Antheil, not the one pronouncing it right, she invented and patented a frequency hopping technology that allowed missiles to go undetected. Well, geez, orgasms, missiles to go, undetected missiles. It was not used it was not used during World War II. It did play a role in the Cold War, even contributing to the de-escalation of the Cuban Missile Crisis. Wow. Lamarr died at the age of 85 in the year 2000. Boy, I'll tell you, some people are pretty astonishing what they do. She was obviously given many gifts, an extraordinary brain, an extraordinary beauty. Yeah. So another astonishing life is in the news today, the life of Josephine Baker. Josephine Baker, who was born in St. Louis in 1906. And her name was Frida Josephine McDonald. Maybe that's why I was saying Baker instead of Baxter, because I had in mind to share this story about Josephine Baker. What an extraordinary human being. She was a dancer. This is how she started her career in New York in the early 20s. But she very quickly left the country and headed to France, where she became an international star. And she said, she was very clear about why she left. The quote, "I just couldn't stand America. And I was one of the first colored Americans to move to Paris." Well, she was later joined by Richard Wright, James Baldwin, so many others. It was our racism that sent her overseas. She was an extraordinary woman. Funny, smart, courageous. During World War II, she served as an ambulance driver in France and as an intelligence agent, earned many medals of honor. In the 50s, she famously adopted a dozen orphans from all over the world, various nationalities, races, religions. And she lived out her life with these children, raising them in her chateau in southwestern France. The reason she's in the news is because the French government, actually the French president, because he's the only one who can make the call, has decreed that she will be reburied. Talking about reburying a lot of wondrous women. Dorothy Parker, Josephine Baker. She will be laid to rest in what's called the Pantheon, which is where France plants its most storied dead. She'll be interred along with Victor Hugo and Marie Curie, Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Her remains right now are in Monaco, but they will be transferred. And this will be a state funeral. The first, I don't know, is she the first Black person? Or the first non-French? I mean, she became a French citizen. Yes, she will be the first Black woman to be interred there, and one of very few foreign-born to be interred there. Josephine Baker. She became a just passionate civil rights advocate. And this is weird that these two women we're talking about, Josephine Baker and Dorothy Parker, and we're talking about both of them and their burials, and the one much honored, Baker, the other much forgotten, Dorothy Parker. But the other thing these two women of, disparate biographies had in common was they both were like really passionate about civil rights. And like Parker, Baker wrote about racial equality. When she would come back to America, she would never perform in a segregated venue. And in 1963, she spoke at the John Washington, the famous march with Dr. King's "I Have a Dream" speech. Josephine Baker was there and herself spoke at that event. And Dorothy Parker left her estate, which, by the way, was not a lot of money. her estate was valued, I believe, at $40,000, if I'm recalling correct. Which was, I mean, you would think somebody who was that famous would have had more money, but she did not. She had a tough life. But she had 40,000, and she gave it to Dr. King to use in his campaign against racial inequality. But then he was killed, and it went to the NAACP, which has her ashes. Well, I didn't even realize that we had that kind of, I didn't realize those two little items dovetailed so beautifully. And I think that takes us to the end for today. And I thank you so much for spending any of this time with me. And I'll be back tomorrow because, quite frankly, I don't have anything else to do. Have a good day. Stay cool.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.